Oh, hi there. It's been a while. My apologies for this episode taking so long, but we wanted to make sure that it was the best it could possibly be. You see, this episode is significant. It's the 50th episode of Aaron Turner's Game Reviews, and I wanted to do something special. That's right, for the first time, you're gonna get a good episode. I wish I was joking. Aaron Turner's Game Reviews is bigger than it ever was before.
Oh, dude, my eye!
I've been told that we have an enormous group of writers at our disposal now. There's me, there's Mr. Parnell, there's... Can I get the names of the other writers? That's it? Okay, that's really funny, but seriously, I need the names of all the writers. You're serious? Oh, God. No wonder this show sucks. We're also giving you a brand new character. Think about it. What's the one character that has been absent from the past 49 episodes? Oh, well, according to my invisible watch, Nintendo is about to make a press conference, and I wouldn't want you to miss that. Run along now. Please welcome the head of Nintendo. Hey! Yeah, hey, what's up, gamers? So how about that Nintendo Switch 2 reveal? Any questions? What kind of features will the Switch 2 have? Your mom. Will you address Joy-Con drift? Pass. Why'd you change DK's design? Well, what can I say? We like to fuck with you guys. Why doesn't Mario make any public appearances? Well, unfortunately, folks, it looks like we're about out of time. Thank you all so much for being here. Oh, and Nintendo Switch 2 will be starting at $500. I'm just kidding. It's actually going to be $600. See ya! That was a close one. The public must never find out the truth about... Mario, he's here. We've made it to Nintendo headquarters, Sim. Now all we have to do is sneak in and convince Mario to join the Vengers. And I'm supposed to take this from you, who liked the name Sim? Anyway, it's fucking freezing out here. I can't even feel my hands. Oh wow, thanks, Sim. Hey, wait a minute, look! It's his hat! Wonder what it's doing here. Oh right, we wouldn't want that to happen. Alright, now let's get inside, camouflage, and go find that plumber. $600. Like they're not gonna buy it anyway. Oh my god. Sim, look. It's him. The moment that no one has been waiting for. You're Mario, right?
Wants to know.
What? You're Mario?
Oh, shit.
I don't understand. You're supposed to be Italian and have a full head of hair. You're balding.
Well, that's what Nintendo wants you to think. I wear a wig for the games. This is the real me.
Oh, well, that reminds me. I found your hat outside. Do you want it back?
No, I don't want it back. I always hated wearing that ridiculous crap. A big M on my hat? Who the fuck wears a hat with their logo on it?
Oh, yeah. Totally. I'm right there with ya.
You know, now that you know the truth behind Nintendo's most guarded secret, I'ma have to kill you now.
Oh, I wouldn't do that if I were you.
And why is that?
Don't you see? I'm not just any old fanboy. With my alien other, I'm far more powerful. How do you think I was able to find you without getting caught? Sim here helped me sneak past 1,000 floors and guards to get here.
Well, what the hell do you want from me?
We're putting together a team. There's a douchebag on YouTube who makes game reviews and he needs to be stopped.
And why should I care about this?
Oh, I don't know, maybe this?
What in tarnation? That blue rat again? How did you get this picture?
Sim has camouflage abilities. All we did was walk into his room and take the picture. He fucks around with Peach all the time. Literally. And he's good friends with that douchebag YouTuber. Come on, redneck. I was born on March 10th, Mario Day. I played all your games as a kid. We were practically destined to work together. Join us, and together we can take down this douchebag.
Tell me the name of this douchebag.
Arron, come on, it's been months. You gotta put out something. I don't know, Sonic. It just seems like I never get to review the great games. I mean, just look at my reviews lately. Ultimate Spider-Man on the DS, the Sonic Riders games, Spider-Man 3. Good thing I didn't review Sonic 06 or we could have had a sequel to The Mental Asylum, The Mental Asylum 2, Electric Boogaloo. Not to mention the whole Venom situation. Every time I think Mitchell Donner is out of my life, he shows right back up like a cockroach. Look, why don't you review something you love, like Mario Kart DS or Sonic Rush? Well, that's part of the problem. Mitchell already reviewed those games while I was brainwashed and in jail. Well, then why don't you review the sequel to those games? Review Sonic Rush Adventure. Oh, hey, that's a great idea, Sonic. I can't believe I never thought of that. Dumbass. What was that? Nothing. So will your friends be joining us? I'm afraid not. Knuckles and Shadow aren't in this game, and Tails is kind of suffering from PTSD. Oh my god, really? Yeah, poor guy had to witness his friend and ex-roommate turn into a monster. So it's just gonna be you and me? Yep, just like the good old days.
I'm afraid not, you blue humping rat.
Oh no.
That's right, you son of a bitch. It's me.
What the hell are you doing here, Mario?
Mitchell Donner sent me. He told me everything that you've done.
Ah, shit. Arron, I should have told you before, but Mario is actually a bald redneck.
Hey, I'm not bald. I'm balding. There's a difference.
What's wrong, Arron? Are you afraid of rednecks? No, I'm afraid because that's not me.
You know, I never did like you, Sonic. Always partying and fucking around. You're a douchebag. No wonder you hang around with this guy.
Wait a minute, I don't understand. I know you guys were rivals in the 90s, but Sega and Nintendo work together now. You should be friends. Yeah, well, tell that to him. I tried to be friends with him back when my games started appearing on the Game Boy Advance and GameCube, but he just thought I was too immature. I think you're just jealous because my games are better.
Horseshit. My games are far superior. And if I had it my way, I would have left this blue rat on the streets after the dumbass Dreamcast failure.
Okay, first off, who are you, a Razor Jin? Why do you keep calling him a rat? He's always called me a rat. He has no respect for me.
You have no respect for anyone.
Okay, both of you, shut the fuck up. Look, Mario, why don't you stick around for a bit? I was about to review a Sonic game, but afterwards I can review a Mario game. I can look at a great game from each of you, and maybe that will help decide which one of you has the better games.
Fine, but I'm not sitting next to that blue rat.
Now, for God's sake. There, red side, blue side. There you go. Now with that, let the battle of the mascots begin. Ha, he said the thing. Now Sonic has certainly had an uphill battle with his handheld games. Sonic the Hedgehog for Game Gear is not very good in my opinion. I know some people like it, but I personally vastly prefer the Genesis version. Say what you will about Labyrinth Zone and Scrap Brain Zone in the Genesis version, but I would much rather play these compared to what the Game Gear version gives us. Labyrinth Zone in the Game Gear version is so much slower, and Scrap Brain is mostly a maze compared to the tight platforming of the Genesis version. And unfortunately, the other Game Gear titles all carried the same maze-type gimmick, only with lots of tubes. Now, I actually think Sonic the Hedgehog 2 for Game Gear is the best of the Game Gear titles, simply because of all the cool ideas it brings to the table. The first zone taking place in an underground lava setting, the hang glider, mine carts, controlling Sonic in a bubble, I actually really like that. But it's far from a great game. It still has some major issues. The hang glider is very hard to control, and while all the Game Gear games suffer from screen crunch, Sonic 2 is by far the worst for it. Then there's the Sonic and Tails duology, Sonic Chaos and Triple Trouble, which weren't that great. These two games are generally criticized for being too easy and unoriginal. Some of the levels in Sonic Chaos seriously take less than 20 seconds to complete if you're not collecting the emeralds. I think Triple Trouble is better because it has better boss fights and actually has a pretty good water zone in the form of Tidal Plant, but again still has some pretty terrible zones. Now some people do really like the Game Gear Sonic games, especially the first duology, but I'm personally not a huge fan of any of them. However, no matter what you think of these two duologies, we can at least all agree that Sonic Blast sucks the big one. This was the last Sonic game released for the Game Gear, and not only was this the lowest point for handheld Sonic, I think this is the lowest point in all of Sonic. Yes, I would much rather play Sonic 06. Sonic Blast is unbearable. It's super slow, and the pre-rendered graphics look horrible. I genuinely believe Blue Marine Zone is the worst zone in Sonic history. The combination of the already slow speed of the game, being underwater, and it being a fucking maze with tubes makes me want to jump off a cliff. One of the worst video games I've ever played. However, 5 years after Sonic Blast, Sega stopped being a console developer after the dumbass Dreamcast failure, as Mario described it, and started licensing their games to different companies. This included Nintendo.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Anyway, this is when we got the Sonic Advance trilogy, which I've talked about to death at this point, so I'll be brief. The first game was a massive step up from the Game Gear titles, but was also far from perfect. Depending on who you ask, Advance 2 is either better than the first game or worse. Now, Advance 2 put me in a mental asylum, so you can probably guess where I stand.
You were in a mental asylum because of a video game? And I thought the Blue Rat was nuts.
Now, I'm known for my unpopular opinions, so it should come as no surprise that Sonic Advance 3, generally considered the worst of the trilogy, is my favorite of the trilogy. I know, right? This guy? Fucking disgusting. However, I don't think Advance 3 is a great game. It still had plenty of problems. But a year later, we got the start of a new trilogy for the Nintendo DS with the release of Sonic Rush. And when I played it, I thought to myself, finally, a great handheld Sonic game. Fun, fast-paced gameplay incorporating both screens to be viewed together. Touchscreen controls for the special stages were super smooth, and they actually made the Chaos Emeralds simple to collect, unlike the Advance trilogy. However, the boss fights could be better, special stages are the same old half-pipe we've seen before, the final zone takes place in space with an anti-gravity gimmick, intense button mashing moments that makes it feel like your thumbs are gonna fall off, and you also had to replay the entire game as Blaze just to unlock the last story. So, it's also not perfect, but it did get a sequel 2 years later. Now, making a sequel to Sonic Rush that's much better sounds like it would be a tough task. Not only would you have to eliminate the problems of the first game, but you would also have to improve everything that did work. Better boss fights, better special stages, and the hardest part, better zone designs. Like I said, Sonic Rush has great overall gameplay, but the zones are not exactly the most creative. So how could you expect a sequel to Sonic Rush to be better? It's a big ask. It almost sounds too good to be true. Well, what if I told you that Sonic Rush Adventure does all of those things? That's right, we have finally made it to the peak of handheld Sonic. I love Sonic Rush Adventure, and I find it crazy because it seems like no one talks about this game. Well, it's time for me to explain why I feel this is the best handheld Sonic game. The game starts with Sonic and Tails being swept up by a tornado, and they end up landing in Blaze's dimension. They're greeted by a character named Marine the Raccoon. Now, a lot of people find Marine to be a very annoying character. She's very enthusiastic and never stops talking. Kinda reminds me of someone, but I can't quite put my finger on it. Although in all seriousness, I don't think Marine is that bad, especially considering that even the game itself recognizes this. Near the end of the game, Blaze calls Marine out for being annoying, and straight up calls her a nuisance, which I thought was hilarious. Sonic Rush Adventure has an emphasis on sailing and the sea. The main villain is a robot pirate named Captain Whisker who's trying to steal the Jeweled Scepter. Now, unlike a lot of other 2D Sonic games, you don't just go from zone to zone. Not only do you have a hub world, but you also have various vessels that you have to craft in order to discover islands. In order to craft these vessels, you need various types of materials that you get from playing through acts. The better your rank is, the more materials you'll be rewarded with. Now, I am aware that lots of people aren't a fan of this style of gameplay, and you might expect me to hate on this.
But come on, you should know me by now. People don't like the exploration, so naturally I love it because I'm fucking disgusting.
Now you might be thinking, Arron, aren't you the same guy who criticized the hub world in Sonic Advance 3? Yes, I am. The thing about that is Advance 3's hub worlds were really annoying to traverse because you had to go through a pathway with platforms in order to find the specific act you were looking for. If you wanted to change your character combo, you had to go all the way back to the giant ring and then all the way back to the act ring. It's a pain in the ass. Sonic Rush Adventure, while having a hub world in the form of Southern Island, you just tap to where you want to go and then you walk around and talk to the residents. And regarding the exploration of it, well, once you discover a new island using one of the vessels, you never have to do it again. You can just select the zone and act with the level select from then on. Now let's talk about the vessels themselves. I feel like this is the most divisive aspect of the game. There's 4 different vessels that you use throughout the game to travel to islands. You keep on crafting new vessels because each one can travel further distances. All of the vessels are controlled using the stylus. First is the Wave Cyclone, which is a water bike. You tap and hold to move forward and dodge incoming obstacles. You can also build up a boost meter, allowing you to blast through certain obstacles. Then you have my personal favorite vessel, the Ocean Tornado, which is a sailboat that can fire different kinds of weapons. You have 6 rounds of bullets, which do the least amount of damage but reload the fastest. You have cannons, which have 3 rounds, do a lot more damage but reload slower. And finally, you have a fucking flamethrower, which does a lot of damage but has the slowest reload. This is the most fun vessel to use. The next vessel is also fun to use. It's called the Aqua Blast, and it's a hovercraft. It's like the Wave Cyclone, except you can shoot cannons. You can either fire rapid small cannons, or you can hold and charge to fire large cannons. You can also spin to deflect certain enemies. And finally, the last vessel is the Deep Typhoon, which is a submarine. It's basically a timing game. You have to tap on enemies at the right time and sometimes slide the stylus to move them out of the way. All of these vessels are basically mini-games that you play between each new island, and I enjoy all of them. If I had to pick a least favorite, I would probably say the Wave Cyclone since it's the most basic. I understand that the vessel minigames aren't for everyone, but I love that they added this as bonus content. These minigames remind me of the minigames in Super Mario 64 DS and New Super Mario Bros.
Oh, hell no! Don't you dare compare my awesome minigames to these dumbass sea adventures. My minigames are way better.
Oh, please. Go ahead, Arron. Tell him that my minigames are better.
Actually, Sonic, I'm gonna have to agree with the redneck in this case. As much as I will love and defend your minigames, Mario just has more variety. Not everyone is going to like the C minigames, but Mario has so many different types of minigames that even if you don't like all of them, there's at least something that's going to appeal to you.
Well, there goes my boner. Well, now that I've talked about the exploration part of the game, I can finally get into the zones. The first zone is Plant Kingdom and is my least favorite zone in the game.
But I want you to think about that statement. The first zone in a Sonic game is my least favorite. That means that the worst of it is already out of the way.
But even with that being said, Plant Kingdom is still a good time because it's still the fast-paced boost gameplay that was great about the first game. There's vines to swing on, different pathways, and mushrooms to bounce on.
Whoa, stop right there. You bounce on mushrooms? Rip off much?
Oh, come on, Mario, what do you expect? It's called Plant Kingdom.
The second zone is Machine Labyrinth, which has steam that pushes you around and has tunnels similar to Huge Crisis. It also has this cool hang glider that you can use to get to a higher platform. Although unlike Sonic 2 on Game Gear, it's not a nightmare to control. Coral Cave is the next zone and is one of my favorites. First of all, visually it looks beautiful. It has a nice difficulty spike but isn't too hard. I also love the parts where it switches perspectives and you ride in a minecart and choose a path. Haunted Ship is a great zone. The setting is so unique and fits the game's theme perfectly. You use ropes to bounce up to higher platforms. I also love when you blast off from a cannon and have to time your button pushes as you go through rings. It's so fun. Blizzard Peaks is also a fun zone. Ah, here we go.
What is it?
It's a snow level. Just wait, he's gonna say it in 3, 2, 1, and... Now, I've always been a sucker for snow-type levels. Called it. Hold on, Sonic, that's not the only reason why I like this zone. It's also got a snowboard. Now in Sonic 3, you ride a snowboard at the beginning of Ice Cap Zone, but it's for a very short amount of time and all you can do is jump. Triple Trouble also had a snowboard in Robotnik Winter Zone, but again, it didn't last long. However, in Blizzard Peaks, you ride it for the majority of Act 1, it's great. Also, you have these cool half-pipes of ice that slide you back and forth between the foreground and the background, so it's a cool little 3D effect. Sky Babylon is basically a cooler version of Altitude Limit from the last game. You use balloons to reach higher areas, and there's also a bunch of fire everywhere. However, you'll have a much easier time playing as Blaze as the fire will not affect her due to the fact that she has fire abilities. Some platforms will explode upon touching them, so that creates some nice visuals with Sonic or Blaze boosting past them. Then you have Pirates Island, the last traditional zone, and once again, I love it. You use these hoses to build a bridge for yourself, and you ride this dolphin through rings, which is really fun. That's what I love about the zones in this game. They all feel unique from each other. You don't play them the same way that you would the previous zone. They all have different obstacles and different gameplay mechanics. It's fantastic. This game has one of the best selections of zones in the entire franchise. Now, of course, let's talk about the boss fights. Bosses in Handheld Sonic have been pretty inconsistent, to say the least. The bosses in the Game Gear titles ranged from annoyingly hard to pathetically easy. Sonic Advance has basic bitch-level bosses, Advance 3 had really creative bosses despite being pretty difficult, Sonic Rush had decent bosses, they weren't bad at all, but could have been a lot better. Yeah, I noticed you completely skipped over Sonic Advance 2.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Anyway, what does Sonic Rush Adventure do? Well, you can probably guess, considering how positive I've been so far, that I love the boss fights. Almost all the boss fights have this 3D cinematic style to them, and it's awesome. Plant Kingdom has the Ghost Rex. Now, most of the bosses are called ghosts for some reason, and I really don't know why. They're all robots, but the Ghost Rex is pretty cool. It is the most basic boss in the game, but it's also the first boss, so it gets a pass. Also, eventually he stomps through the ground and you end up on a lower level. Wait a minute, that's another Sonic boss that's similar to Donkey Kong Country Returns. I talked about this with Sonic Advance 3 as well. Although, considering that both of these games came before Donkey Kong Country Returns, does that mean that Donkey Kong ripped off Sonic? Yeah, that's a good point. What do you have to say now, Redneck?
Hey, Sonic 06 is horrible.
Machine Labyrinth's boss is the Ghost Pendulum, and this is a unique boss because there's different sizes of balls, and you can choose which one to hit and send back to deal damage. The larger balls are obviously heavier, so it takes more momentum to send them up. So I love that this boss gives you different ways to deal damage. Do you hit the smaller balls, which take less momentum but don't deal as much damage? Or hit the larger ball, which takes more momentum but deals a lot more damage?
I feel like I'm waiting for someone to make a joke, but he's not here.
Hey man, my ball joke senses are tingling.
Oh well.
Coral Cave has the Ghost Kraken, which is a great fit. He shoots ink out and tries to hit you with his tentacles. The water will also raise halfway through. You have to hit the jewel on his tentacles. While not being my favorite, it's still a good boss. Haunted Ship fittingly has a ghost pirate. See? That actually makes sense. It's a haunted ship, so the ghost thing actually works. But once again, this is a unique boss because unlike a lot of other Sonic bosses, both of you are moving around freely, and you just have to wait for the right moment to attack. The pirate will keep on going around the ship with attacks, and you just maneuver around the stage. Now we get to Blizzard Peaks, which has the best boss in the game. This is unique because the boss itself is a series of platforms. You go inside of the ghost whale and have to find its heart before the timer runs out. You have to jump on platforms while avoiding enemies and missiles. You even jump on the missiles to reach higher areas. It's fucking awesome. Sky Babylon has a cool boss as well. You run along a path while avoiding red mines on the bottom screen, and then jump on green mines to reach the top screen to damage the Ghost Condor. It's great, another boss that I think is so creative, especially by using advantage of both screens. Pirates Island has you fighting both Captain Whisker and his robot minion Johnny at the same time.
Wait, his robot minion is named Johnny? Well, I guess I should expect something like that from someone whose name is Captain fucking Whisker.
But attacking Johnny is really easy. It's Captain Whisker who puts up quite the fight. He stomps around a lot and uses fire attacks. He can also shoot his arms out at you.
I enjoy the idea of having to fight 2 bosses at the same time. However, you all know the drill, the last zone does not have the last boss. After this, you have Big Swell, where you fight the Ghost Titan. The robot will fire fish missiles, and you have to hit the green ones to damage the force field surrounding the cannon. Once you do this, you have to attack the cannon so that eventually you can get in and fire yourself at the top of the Titan. I think this is much better than the boss in the fuck why do we keep doing this bullshit zone of Sonic Rush. The reason why I like this boss is the same thing I've been saying about almost all the bosses. They actually try something new that we haven't seen in past Sonic games. Making you think which pendulum to hit, having the boss move around like you do, having a series of platforms inside the actual boss, using both screens to reach the boss, fighting 2 bosses at the same time, using a cannon to fire yourself at the boss. It's just such a breath of fresh air. Just like each of the zones in the game, all of the bosses feel different because they all have different ways to attack them. However, you all know what's next, the Chaos Emeralds and Super Sonic. This is something that I've been complaining about with every handheld Sonic game, even the ones that I praised.
Finally, you gonna shit on this blue rat. I've been waiting so long.
Oh no, I was about to finish.
Finish? Oh dear Lord, get him the hell away from me.
Well, prepare to get jizzed on, Mario, because I don't have much to complain about.
Oh, that's bullshit.
Oh, yeah.
How could you complain about Super Blue Rat in the other games but not this one?
Well, first, let's start with how you get the Chaos Emeralds. Now, I already praised Sonic Rush for getting rid of the tedious collectathon from the Advanced trilogy. However, while it did have super smooth touch control in the special stages, it was still the half-pipe shit that we've seen a million times before. Sonic Rush Adventure does something completely brand new. It takes use of the Wave Cyclone and has you compete in a race against Johnny. If you run into him on the map, you can challenge him for a Chaos Emerald. You have to use all your skill with the Wave Cyclone to beat him, and I'm so glad they did this instead of the half-pipe. I've described this whole game using this word over and over again, and it's because it's true. It's a unique way to collect Chaos Emeralds. Now, I haven't talked about Blaze yet because I wanted to save all my points about her when talking about the Chaos Emeralds. Blaze was one of my biggest problems with the first Sonic Rush. In that game, in order to unlock the final boss, you had to do an entire playthrough as Blaze. Now, before I get into what you have to do with Sonic Rush Adventure, I do have to admit to a mistake that Mitchell made in his review of the first Sonic Rush. Honestly, he's a bit of a dumbass for making this mistake because it's pretty fucking obvious. He said that Blaze plays the exact same as Sonic aside from going through the zones in a different order. This is wrong. Blaze actually does play differently than Sonic. Sonic's boost is much faster than Blaze, but Blaze's jump boost goes much higher than Sonic. So I'm gonna have to take back Mitchell's complaint. However, I still agree with him that Blaze's playthrough should have been cut. Yes, she does play differently than Sonic, but that still doesn't excuse having to do a second playthrough just for an extra boss fight. And I'm happy to say that Sonic Rush Adventure does not make you do a Blaze playthrough. In fact, they kinda do almost exactly what Mitchell said to do with Blaze. You can choose which character to play as. So that basically means that you can choose whether you prefer speed or height. But like I said, Blaze is easier when it comes to Sky Babylon with all the fire. Now, you are required to fight each boss for the first time as Sonic, but eventually you will be able to replay them as Blaze. The only exception to this is Big Swell, where you can choose Sonic or Blaze. The reason why is because eventually you are required to fight some of the bosses specifically as Blaze. Once again, you might expect me to criticize this, but no.
Oh, come on!
Oh, yes. You see, you still have to collect the Soul Emeralds, but instead of having to do a second playthrough, you just have to do certain missions as Blaze. The game has a list of missions that you can unlock by talking to various characters in the hub world. 4 of the emeralds can be obtained by fighting specific bosses again as Blaze. These include the Ghost Pendulum, Ghost Kraken, Captain Whisker and Johnny, and the Ghost Titan. The other 3 emeralds are from completing certain hidden islands as Blaze, although I'll talk about the hidden islands later. The reason why I'm not criticizing having to collect the Soul Emeralds or having to fight bosses again is because, for one, it's not even all the bosses, it's just half of them, which is better than having to do an entire playthrough. And second, I think this is meant to introduce you to the missions. Again, I'll get into this later, but for now, let's just say that there's a lot more missions than you think, although the 7 Soul Emerald missions are the only ones that are actually required. So I really appreciate what they did with Blaze in this game. The only thing you have to do with Blaze is collect the Soul Emeralds, and it's not even hard to do. The rest of the game can be played with just Sonic. Blaze is just there if you prefer her to Sonic. So anyway, once you get all 14 emeralds, you unlock the true final boss in Deep Core. Eggman and Eggman Nega finally show up and you fight them in the Egg Wizard as Sonic or Blaze. Even though you have access to both characters during the boss, you aren't required to use both of them. You can play this using whatever strategy you want. If you only want to use Sonic, you can do that. If you only want to use Blaze, you can do that too. Basically, the Egg Wizard has 3 phases, and you can either use Burning Blaze and shoot fireballs, or as Super Sonic, you can deflect the Egg Wizard's attacks back at the weak spot. They'll shoot green and blue fireballs, dragon heads, and meteors. In the second phase, it adds a line of lava and electric attacks, and in the final phase, it adds missiles. All of this is done using both screens instead of the first game putting Sonic on the top and switching to Blaze on the bottom. That's right, I have been criticizing Supersonic final bosses with every handheld Sonic game until now. For the first time ever, I actually think it works really well.
So that was Sonic Rush Adventure, and it's a great game. It improved upon all the problems I had, and... Wait, what? There's more? Holy shit, this game is incredible!
Yeah, as if the sailing minigames weren't enough, there's more content than just the zones themselves. First of all, like I said, there's a lot more missions you can do. In fact, there's 100 of them. And again, you aren't required to beat all of them, it's just a bonus. Stuff like fighting bosses again, getting to the goal under a time limit, and collecting a certain amount of rings in time. But also, there's more exploring to do. Remember those 3 hidden islands I mentioned? Well, there's 16 of them. There are hidden islands on the map that you can find, which are basically mini levels for you to play, all based around the themes of the zones. Again, only 3 of these are required, meaning that there's 13 hidden islands that you can find and complete just for fun. Now, you will of course be rewarded with different materials for your vessels, but still, they didn't have to add this. It's just bonus levels. Just look at the map of this game, it's surprisingly big. And you can draw yourself a path to follow using the touchscreen. Also, you can have Tails continue to upgrade each of your vessels over time by getting more materials. The title of this game is very fitting, it really does feel like an adventure. If I had any complaints about the game, I think the music could be better. There's not really any memorable pieces for me.
Now, I understand that Sonic Rush Adventure is not for everyone. There's a lot of people who don't like all the sailing you have to do and how much dialogue there is with cutscenes. I get it. There's a large chunk of this game that is unusual for a Sonic game. But I want to quickly sum up why I love this game so much.
Jesus, the quality of the zones, the hang glider returning in Machine Labyrinth, the minecart section in Coral Cave, the cannons in Haunted Ship, the half-pipe in Blizzard Peaks, boosting past the fire in Sky Babylon, the dolphin riding in Pirate's Iron, the fucking boss fights look incredible. Different sizes of balls, Knuckles would have a field day with jokes. The ghost pirate on Haunted Ship, that's so cool. Fighting the boss inside of the boss? Take me now! The game uses the DS to its advantage and makes great use of the touchscreen and using both screens for boss fights. The C minigames are so fun to play. They gave us new ways of collecting emeralds, finally gave us a good supersonic boss fight, and oh my god, the bonus content! 100 missions to play, 16 fucking hidden islands to discover. Holy shit! This game has an incredible amount of content! Sonic Rush Adventure gets a 10 out of 10. Ooh yeah, that's what I needed to hear.
Oh, that is complete bullshit. According to Mitchell, you ain't never given any of my games a perfect score. This has been a complete waste of my time. I had to sit here while you sucked that blue rat's dick this whole time.
Well, guess what, Redneck? It might be your turn to get your dick sucked. Recognize this game?
Holy shit. Is that what I think it is?
That's right. It's time for Mario to go beyond the cosmos. To be continued in Battle of the Mascots Part 2. Coming... man, I don't know.
Mario, you're not gonna believe what I just did. Mario? What the hell? Oh dear God, he must have escaped. Yeah, we got a bit of a situation here. He's left the building. No, I'm not talking about Elvis, I'm talking about Mario. Someone needs to locate him right now.